Today, I need to share a story that's, honestly, pretty tough to tell. It's a story about being open to harm, losing something and learning a hard lesson. I was robbed. But it didn't happen on a dark street or in a crowded market. It happened in a place I always thought was super safe, inside an airplane during an international flight. I lost $5,000. The money was for my costs during a long trip, an amount I had saved and planned for very carefully. Losing the money was a big deal, but honestly, how it made me feel was much worse. It broke how I thought about safety when traveling and made me face something I never imagined. This experience taught me that we can never let our guard down, not even for a second. The reason I'm sharing this personal and painful story isn't to scare you. It's to teach you. It's to open your eyes to a danger that many of us, even experienced travelers, often ignore. We get on a plane, settle into our seats, and just assume we're in a safe and controlled place. The doors close, the plane takes off, and we're sealed in a metal tube miles above the ground. Who would dare to commit a crime here? The answer, as I found out, is someone who counts on that very idea. They rely on us being comfortable, distracted, and believing we're safe among other passengers. My goal here is to walk you through exactly what happened on that Ethiopian Airlines flight. I want you to understand the situation, the small details, and the series of events that led to the theft. By breaking down my own mistake, I hope to give you the knowledge to stop the same thing from happening to you or your loved ones. This is a warning story, a real-life account of how quickly a dream trip can turn into a nightmare. Let's explore the setting, the moments of not paying attention, and the frustrating time after the theft. It's a story I wish I didn't have to tell, but one I feel I must share. Losing money is one thing, but losing your peace of mind is another. The feeling of being violated in such a personal space stays with you long after the money is gone. It makes you question your judgment and look at other travelers with a bit of doubt. This is not the feeling we should have when we explore the world. Traveling is about connecting, trusting, and being open. However, this openness needs to be balanced with a good amount of caution. Let this story be your reminder. May my experience be the lesson you learn without having to go through it yourself. We must be watchful, always. And, if you found this story important, share this video with your friends and family. That way, together, we can warn as many people as possible and not give these sky thieves any room to operate. Your action can protect someone from going through the same thing. It was a long trip, a flight with many connections that honestly, many international travelers know well. I was flying from Addis Ababa, the capital of Ethiopia, to Luanda, the capital of Angola. The airline was Ethiopian Airlines, a company I had flown with before and considered trustworthy. As a frequent traveler, I have a routine, a system for everything. This includes how I handle my valuables. I've always been careful, almost paranoid, with my passport, money, and electronics. My typical strategy is to keep everything of high value in a small, dedicated travel pouch that never leaves my side, tucked safely inside my carry-on backpack. On this particular trip, I followed my usual protocol. The $5,000, a mix of currencies from my long stay in Africa, were tucked into an envelope. This envelope was placed inside a smaller pouch, which was then zipped into a compartment in my backpack. I felt secure. My backpack was my trusted travel companion, always within reach and sight. I placed it in the overhead bin above my seat, as I always do. This allows me to know exactly where it is and constantly feel its presence. It's a simple habit that has given me peace of mind on countless flights around the world. I've traveled to many countries. I've navigated chaotic cities, remote villages, and busy border crossings. I've always prided myself on my travel smarts, my ability to read situations and avoid trouble. This confidence, however, can lead to complacency. You start to believe you're immune to the risks that affect others. You think you've seen it all and know how to handle any situation. This false sense of security is perhaps the most dangerous thing a traveler can carry. It lowers your guard when you should be most alert. As the flight began, I settled in for the few hours until Luanda. I felt relaxed. The stress of the connections was behind me, and I was on the final leg of my journey. I put on my headphones, listened to some music, and even dozed off for a while. My backpack was safely stowed in the overhead bin above my seat, a familiar weight off my mind. I had no reason to suspect anything was wrong. I was in a sealed cabin, surrounded by other passengers and a professional crew. In my mind, the risk was zero. I was wrong. The cabin on this particular flight felt unusual, and honestly, that played a big part in what was about to happen. The plane was surprisingly empty. I'd guess it was less than 30% full. There were whole rows of seats completely empty. This made for a strange feeling, quiet and roomy, but also a bit lonely. On a full flight, all the moving around and other people can stop bad things from happening. There are always eyes watching. But in an almost empty cabin, it's easier to stay hidden. It's simpler for someone to move around without getting too much attention. I was sitting in an aisle seat, and the two seats next to me were empty. There was one person in the row in front of me, and another in the middle row. All that extra space from the empty seats felt like a treat at first. I could stretch out, get my things in order, and enjoy a sense of privacy. But that emptiness also meant fewer people were around to see what was happening. This feeling of being alone, which seemed good at first, would soon become a big problem. I remember noticing one passenger in particular. He was sitting a few rows to my left, also in an aisle seat, kind of off to the side from me. At the start of the flight, I caught him looking my way several times, always from the side. I thought it was normal, especially since I was trying out my new Rokid Max 2 entertainment glasses. People look around on flights, it's normal. Maybe he was bored, or maybe I was just in his side view. But his look felt different. It seemed more focused, more on purpose. It was a small detail, the kind of thing you notice without thinking, but then brush off as just being overly worried. I told myself I was overthinking it. Looking back, this was a big warning sign that I completely ignored. My traveler's gut feeling was trying to tell me something, a warning that something was wrong. But my logical mind, feeling safe in the airplane cabin, pushed it aside. I made excuses for his behavior instead of wondering about it. The quiet cabin, the empty seats, and the steady look from another passenger were all pieces of a puzzle. At the time, I couldn't see how they fit together. I was too comfortable, too relaxed, and about to pay a high price for it. About 4 hours into the flight, the pilot announced that we would begin our descent in 10 minutes. I felt it was time to go to the bathroom and brush my teeth. This is a normal, everyday part of any flight. I paused my movie, took off my headphones, and stood up. I grabbed my backpack from the overhead bin, took out my toothbrush and toothpaste, and headed to the bathroom, leaving my backpack in my seat. And then, I made the biggest mistake of my trip. It was a split-second decision, a moment of pure carelessness that I will regret for a long time. The bathroom was just a few steps away. The cabin was quiet, and everyone seemed to be minding their own business. So I left it. I left my backpack, which held my passport, my laptop, and the envelope with $5,000 alone in my seat. I walked down the aisle to the bathroom at the back of the cabin. The whole trip probably didn't take me more than 5 minutes. 5 minutes. That's all it took for my world to turn upside down. As I walked, I didn't look back. I didn't check if anyone was watching me. My mind was on autopilot, doing a routine task without any thought about what was happening around me. While I was in the bathroom, I remember thinking about my plans for Luanda. I was excited to explore the city, to film new content, and to dive into a new culture. The money I was carrying was key for all of that. It was meant to cover my stay, food, travel, and other costs for making videos. It meant freedom and a chance to do new things. The idea that it was in danger never even crossed my mind. My backpack was right there, in my seat, on a safe plane. What could happen in those few short minutes? All of this happened right after the pilot announced that we would begin our descent into Luanda. When I got back to my seat, everything looked exactly as I had left it. My backpack was still in the seat, seemingly untouched. The cabin was just as quiet as before. There was absolutely no sign of anything wrong. I sat down, put my headphones back on, and went back to my movie. I felt a sense of relief, the kind you feel when you get back to the comfort of your own space. I had no idea at all that I had just been robbed. The moment I found out didn't happen right away. It happened when we were already getting off the plane. Before getting off, I decided to pack up my things. I reached into my backpack to grab my passport and landing card. As I opened the main part, a cold, sick feeling started to wash over me. I opened the pocket where I kept the small pouch with my valuable items. The pouch was there, but it felt lighter. I opened the pouch really fast. My passport was there. My credit cards were there. But the envelope full of money was gone. It just disappeared. I emptied my whole backpack onto the empty seats next to me. I looked in every pocket, every corner, every fold. Nothing. The envelope with $5,000 wasn't there. My first reaction was pure, undeniable shock. It had to be a mistake. Maybe I had moved it somewhere else and forgotten. I went over every step in my mind, but I knew. I knew I had put it in that pouch. How could this have happened? I looked around the cabin, my eyes darting from face to face. Who did this? At that moment, I didn't even think about the man who'd been watching me. The faces of the other passengers were calm, unaware. It wasn't just about the money, it was how bold the thief was, messing with my personal things in my private space while I was just a few feet away. It felt incredibly personal. It was a betrayal of the unspoken trust that exists between travelers sharing a small space. I rushed to a flight attendant, trying to explain what happened in all the commotion. "Someone stole money from my backpack during the flight." The flight attendant looked at me with a mix of surprise and doubt, but she didn't seem to think it was urgent. She asked if I was sure I hadn't just lost the money. That question, even though it's standard, felt like an accusation and wasted precious time. I insisted, explaining the money was gone and it could only have happened during the flight. I asked if there were cameras in that area, and they confirmed there weren't. She finally called the head flight attendant, who came over to me while passengers kept leaving. The head flight attendant's response was slow and by the book. She said they couldn't accuse anyone without proof. The crew seemed unsure what to do, hesitating as people continued to exit. They called the airline's representative on the ground. We explained the situation again and the need to tell the authorities on the ground before passengers left the airport. We then went to find the authorities with the passenger list in hand. By the time we got to the Angolan police station, most passengers had already left. They were already going through immigration or heading to baggage claim, maybe even out of the airport. The police took my statement, acting professionally but explaining how difficult the situation was. Also find out that the passengers list provided by the airline flight attendant wasn't the current one, as the person sitting in the seat where I was is different. Also, the flight number was different. Therefore, requested ground Ethiopian Airlines to go back to the plane a request accurate list. Without stopping everyone, finding the culprit was almost impossible. The thief had my money and now they had a head start. The crew's slow and ineffective response allowed them to escape without a trace. The process at the airport to figure out what to do showed that the ground authorities weren't ready for this kind of thing either. However, it was noted that both the Ethiopian Airlines representative on the ground and some police officers said that theft on planes is very common. That's why the best way to keep from being the next victim is by sharing my story. The search methods they used weren't good and the money never showed up.